Good evening, everybody, and welcome. It is a Monday night. It is 2025, and I stress that for one slight little reason, and that is I'm not sure where he's at related to me, but from where
He's
I'm
he's
sitting in my
up
window,
he's up to
is he
your
up there?
upper right.
My upper right.
Yeah,
So
that's
he's
me.
whatever. He's above me, right? Like
Yes.
we have the one and only Michael Joseph, who is hanging out with us. And so this isn't like some repeat show that we just got bored and threw it in. We actually convinced him. We said, actually, I'll let
Or
you in on a little secret. We just kept talking and kept talking, and we figured, you know what? If we just start the show, he's there. He can't escape. So he decided, you know what? He'll stick around for us tonight. So welcome, and thank you very much for joining us tonight, everybody.
So if you didn't have a chance to check out, MJ and I just did a show. You can check that out on YouTube or it's on Facebook everywhere else, where we just chatted a little bit about the mental side of keeping ourselves in the game and to take care of ourselves a little bit. So part of it, we just touched about it this much about the stress of what we experience as performers, and that's what this show is going to be about: is how do we handle, what are some ways to deal with the stress that we run into, whether we're a wedding DJ or a club DJ or special event, whatever. There's a lot of stress that's involved with it, and MJ comes from a variety of different experiences as a performer, and there's a few of them that might have been stressful at one time, maybe.
yeah, it's interesting. This I want to tell this as we start, and every DJ, no matter what you do, can understand this. When I was a vocal performer, and I tell people, they're like people who are in a band and vocal performers, like, oh, being a DJ is so easy, and I'm like, not as much as you think. I said, because if you're in a band or you're a vocal performer and you start a song, and you can see the audience isn't into it, what do you do as a vocal performer? You keep singing
You
till the
keep singing
song.
until the end, yeah, because that's
Every song we start, we have to be prepared to get out of it if it really bombs. So every 2 minutes, give or take, we're thinking, how am I doing?
especially in some of the situations that you have been in over the years. Obviously, as a vocal performer, that was one thing, but you've been into clubs, big clubs that have had that, and you're doing that constant evaluation. We've done many shows where we've talked about your performing and things, and that evaluation, thinking 3 songs ahead, but yet being in the moment to evaluate what's going on and all those different things. How did you handle that in your world?
I just push through, but it does drain you. And anybody who's done this, as the DJ's watching this, those gigs when you get done, you put your work in. You feel it. That's all there is to it. You push through, you put your personal feelings deep down inside some nights. That's all you can do. I guess a lot of DJs, I'm sure, drink or take drugs to alleviate that. There's a lot of that within, like, especially the club side of things. But sometimes that's all you can do is just push it down inside, and when the night's over, then you face it. That's not healthy, but that's all I can tell you.
So this drinking thing, I guess I hadn't didn't even occur to me, but yeah, that has been a huge many DJs talk about the idea of needing to I need a couple of drinks to loosen up. I guess I hadn't even thought of all those as I was thinking about tonight's show.
I used to have a booking agent that would tell me, if you just drank, you'd have a lot more friends. I'm thinking, no, I don't want those friends, and those friends wouldn't. I'd probably be a boring drunk. I'd probably be the guy to be like, no, seriously, I can save you 30% on your car insurance, and all you have to do is put. That would probably be me. But yeah, there's a lot of people that bury. That's, again, we talk about the mental health. Bury the feelings in some sort of substance, and it'll build up.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in a lot of the events that we're doing, though, when those moments come into play, um, whether it's something legal or whether it's something illegal that you're choosing to use, it doesn't take the stress away. The stress is still there. You're just masked to what's happening. You're inhibited in some form or fashion to the stresses that are still there. So I don't think it, that's one of the things I think some people who miss correctly, go down that path is it's not that it's suddenly not stressful. It's just you don't look at it the same way because you can't, or depending on the level of which you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that is a one of those areas that rookie early, or younger DJs, younger adult DJs have, because as I now that I'm thinking about it, many of my DJs, they come after their first show and they'd be like, "Yeah, I was so nervous that I had to go up to the bar and get a shot of something or whatever," and having ways to deal with that type of anxiety and those types of situations other than something illegal. I guess that's kind of the direction, I guess, why we're here tonight is to share some ideas of how to not to create these stress or find yourself in these stressful situations when you can avoid it, and then how to handle it when you do have it.
I think one that I touched about this last hour is not being hard on yourself. I have at the bottom of my computer, it says, just be happy. And that reminds you that no matter if you make a mistake, being angry about it or something, beating yourself up isn't going to help you do better. Just take a moment, go, yeah, I screwed up. Let's be happy about this, be in this moment and do better. And that will help you a lot. But it's number one, before we go any further, is don't beat yourself up. That's going to cause you right there to drink. It's that in itself. So you're compounding. So that would be my first advice. If you're going to go the route of non-substance, is start with being nicer to yourself. Would you let me talk to you the way that you talk to yourself, or would you slap my mom for giving birth to me?
Well, depends. How spunky is she today? Am I going to be able to get awake before
she's
she
passed many years, but when she was alive, she's a spunky woman. Yeah.
Yeah. So that probably would. Yeah.
6 kids, and it's just no.
I wouldn't. That's not a.
No.
I wouldn't.
But yeah, who would you let talk to you the way that you talk to yourself?
For sure. Yeah, definitely that self-talk. I think that when we're doing some of our stressful things and we're getting all wound up, Dan, give me an example of a spot that you find when you're performing and such that's kind of a consistent kind of stress point with you. I have numerous when it comes to weddings when I'm doing things. Where's one of them that you're like, this is always, I get a little wound up when I'm doing this?
The heart always goes into overdrive. The first crack of the mic, right? Like especially when the first crack of the mic coincides with the entrance, right? Like depending upon some of your venues, they come in, we don't really have a chance really to say much, and then we're bringing in the wedding party, and so like that's where I'm introducing myself. I'm telling everybody what's going to happen, and I'm bringing them in, and so there's like, okay, this has to be about me for 5 seconds, right? Like, so that's where I just kind of like, okay, we'll get through it. That's probably one of my biggest. There's 2 others that are up there with it, but that's probably the first and foremost, because it's that first time that really sets the mood and the tone for what comes later.
And my that is exactly one of my spots where the anxiety level just climbs and climbs and climbs. And it invariably happens because 25 years ago, I introduced a bride and a groom, and I called the bride her sister's name. So this has been in the back of my head forever. And when you get to that point, and it's like I practice the names, I have them written down in front of me. I have my scripts. I've talked to the guests over the microphone, so it's not, and I'm not like I'm really nervous in a microphone speaking. But there's that stress. It's like, what happens if I mispronounce a name and somebody says, "It's Smith, you idiot," that kind of a thing. All these things are going, and we're back to what MJ was just referring to, the being my worst enemy, and I'm all fretting about it. And then the next thing you know, the microphone's open, and we go, and you just do it. And the heart's like type of a thing, and you're like, oh, breathe.
I think there's a lot to that piece, though, also, not just because you're worried about the potential mess up. But there's also another element on that that adds to that anxiety, and that is that reaction from those guests, right? Because you're in, this is one of those moments where you're going to say something and you want them to react favorably. And I'm not saying you don't have an opportunity before that, but you're probably not going to do much before that that's going to get a round of applause. That's going to have the energy where you can gauge what energy they're going to be bringing to you. Right? Even if you're a part of the ceremony, it's a different animal.
Mm-hmm.
And so, not only do I have to worry about not screwing up and saying Smythe instead of Smith, but I also have to worry about, if I say this, are they going to hoot and holler? Are they going to like
Turn as one and
okay,
say Smythe?
yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely one of those things. So, I mean, we talk about when it comes to making announcements on the microphones, which can be a very stressful time for pretty much everyone. Is there any way to reduce that stress besides having that drink up at the bar beforehand? Oh, it's masking. That was masking.
I would definitely say yes. And what comes into play is exactly what you started to mention, which was practicing, right? Like practice what we say. But in addition to that, make your script. I don't want to say idiot proof because that's when you'll really screw up with something. But my scripts, not only do I have the words that I'm going to say, but anybody's name is written out phonetically. So that way I'm going to like, it prevents me. I don't want to say prevents me, but it really reduces the risk of me saying a name. Like when I don't write it out, there's a couple names like Alicia or is Alicia, right? Like, and you might say like, well, why would you think it's the other one? Because I've had both, right? So like, but they're written the same way, or they're spelled the same way. And so like just knowing which I meant, and becomes the key to kind of helping yourself out. So having those things done phonetically and then practicing them phonetically, so that you're all set ready to go when it comes time, really can be it can at least alleviate that part or that stressor, at least reduce it a little bit, because you have, for lack of better terms, a way to kind of fall back on. I can't screw this up because I spelled it out the way I'm going to say it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what. That would be my tip. I mean,
And in what I've done over the last couple of years, and I have gotten better with this as time has gone on. 5 years ago, 10 years ago, there was a lot of anxiety around the introductions. But one of the things I do is I spend a lot of time, basically, it's Bobby and Susie. The day of, I'm referring to not the bride. It's like, and are Susie and are they over there, or Bob and the guys over there, whatever. It's constantly using their names as often as possible. And when I know some of the wedding party, I'm using their names so that when it comes time, it's less of me introducing these complete strangers that I've just seen for the first time at that moment. Even though maybe I haven't seen the bride and groom, but I've been referring to them as. So now it's not the first time I'm saying those names for the day. Or I've said them 3 times at practicing in the truck on the way there. It's like I've been utilizing it throughout the day. And it isn't the Henderson wedding. It's Bobby and Susie's. What time are Bobby and Susie going to be having their lunch or their dinner tonight? And, oh, yeah, we're serving at 5 o'clock. Great. And you'll be serving the head table with Bobby and Susie tonight? Yes, we'll be serving the head table and the bride and groom. And it has helped. It has helped.
Brilliant, by the way.
But that is one of the areas I can see when I've had Michael, my son Michael, doing some announcing like that, because he hasn't had that level of experience. You can just see that all of a sudden the anxiety level goes up, almost to exactly what you described, Dan. The first time you crack that microphone, even if I've already made 10 announcements and the crowd is in essence warmed up to a microphone, a voice on the mic, the first time that he cracks that microphone, he can come across well and he sounds good, but knowing him, and you can see it in the face, the all of a sudden it's like the heart rate's way up there, and his little his stress monitor on his Apple Watch is probably spinning right now.
It also depends. I mean, one of the other things that can cause that stress is, where are you standing at that moment? right? Do you have the protection of your gear, or did you step completely out into the dance floor area or the floor of where everybody's at, and kind of basically where they're seeing you head to toe, like where there's no hiding anything. So I think that can add some different stressors. I'm not saying like if you find yourself stressed because you went out on the floor, now suddenly just go behind your system so that you hide. But being ready for that moment. Like I think it can be one of those things as you're setting up, you know, if you have the opportunity to do it, go out and do a practice run through of just your hellos, right out in the middle of that dance floor, so that you get familiar and comfortable in that space with those decorations, right? I say that because obviously people are not going to be around at that point. It may be a venue you've been at 20,000 times before, but with those decorations, with that feeling, you get a different sense of that day.
Definitely, definitely. So you're saying then, as we were talking about, placement of the person, what are your feelings about laying on the floor whilst doing the announcements behind your gear? Is that
Under the table?
Under the table, yeah, that's the spot. I was just wondering, is that a good? I'm just asking for a friend.
Go up in the balcony by that point. I mean, you might as well have that voice of God either way.
Yeah,
right?
that'd be
You don't
fun.
see you, just know where it's coming from.
Oh, fun. So let's transition into, and we'll kind of hit a couple more wedding stress points, but I want to hit the stress we get off a dance floor sometimes, especially when we have guests out there that are being trying to tell us how to do our job, or they're not, you get this feeling of they're not happy with whatever it is, and they're adding to the stress level of what I'm doing as a DJ when it comes to playing my sets of music and the flow of what I have. How do you basically not let those people on the floor negatively get in your head? And MJ, this one I think is gonna, you've had to have this skill to survive as long as you have.
Now, all of his clients, guests, and dancers have always loved everything he's played.
That's
Everything.
true. That's because he mixes in.
Oh, is this where I'm supposed to take a drink? I forget. How did we play this game?
It's that one along with the M word.
When you were
heard that
wanting
in
to
forever.
mix music properly. We'll talk
Yeah.
about that later. That's a big stress reliever.
Is it though?
Yeah.
This is not going to sound right, what I'm about to say, but I make a game of it.
Okay.
Then if that person is drunk and they're coming up and really bothering you, I try to figure out a way to manipulate them, as in like, you really want to hear that song? Oh, I haven't heard that song in so long. Are you sure? I mean, because I don't know. And I just try to make a way, and I'm like, hey, he wants to hear this song, and like, I don't know. What do you think? And you really try to make a game to disarm them from being that I'm right, you're wrong kind of mentality, to where they all of a sudden like you and they don't push you as hard. Where you really just try to work the crowd one person at a time. And I'm telling you, there was a lady that was drunk a few months ago, and I was at a place. Her daughter's trying to drag stuff, trying to get her off the floor. She was just bad, and I'm like, you wanted to hear that rock stuff? Yeah, I want to hear that song. There's a band in the ballroom tonight playing that. You should go check them out. And she's like, really? I'm like, yeah, go. They're great, And she's like, I'll go check them out. And it's all. I made her believe that that's better than me. And that's, she came back a couple times. I'm like, all right, I'll give you a song, and give her a song, and she's happy. And then she'll be like, hey, can you give me another one? I'm like, give me a couple minutes. And you just make a game out of it to where you're trying to see what. And again, for me, I don't have like the announcing and stuff, so it's more about me and the crowd. So I don't have to do a lot of that. So I can focus on them. And, like I said, the way I mix, I prepare so that I'm able to have space. That's the thing that I thought about when you guys doing your first announcement. How much space do you give yourself before you make that first announcement when you're introducing yourself to the crowd? Do you have a routine that kind of gives you that base to stand on before you say that first name? Because that's what I'm kind of doing with these people, is I'm creating a base between me and them to where, they all of a sudden don't want to attack me. They're like, I'm sorry, I'm drunk, dude. And I'm like, oh, it's all good. It's all good. So, like, I'm creating this, and that's what I want to ask: is you guys, do you have routines and stuff before that first summit that you create for yourself, your ground to stand on? Does that answer anything? If I just babbled and went a
No,
different
no, no,
direction?
no, no. You did go.
Yeah.
But I think that what you're talking about, many performers, that's what they do. They do have that type of a opening, for lack of a better way to
Yeah,
describe it.
when I used to perform, your first song was nothing more. This was the purpose of the first song was, hey, I'm up here singing now. No other purpose. To get 2 or 3 minutes for them to get used to you being on stage singing. That was the purpose of the first song. And sound check. If we used to joke with the sound guys, I don't need sound check. That's what first song's for. But but that's a lot of it is, and that's probably where I built that from. Is just like, because when I do my announcing at the one casino, when we do our giveaways, we give away every hour on the hour, and I'll go a minute before that announcement, before the things start churning and checking out the names that I have to say. And I'll take that minute and just introduce myself. We're going here. We got all kinds of stuff. I'm going to be here today till 9 p.m., taking requests, doing shout outs. So if you guys have any birthdays, you want to stop up later, all this sort of thing, and let it out. And then I watch the time come up. And then we go, okay, we're ready to pull our first name for the day. So I set myself a time till when it comes time to say a name. And trust me, I butcher names all day long. Like, you don't even know. I mean, like, you don't even know. I have people laughing at me. And I'm like, what? And they're like, this is how you say it. I'm like, oh, this is how I don't beat myself up over it.
Mm-hmm.
So I give myself that time ahead. That's what I think a lot of this is you've got to create your space to do your thing. And that takes you out of your own head, because someone else can take you out of the game. You can take you out of the game. You first have to stop taking you out of the game. Am I making sense tonight?
No, you do. And as you're talking about that, is like, so the closest I get to that is generally about 15 minutes before I do introductions. I will do welcome everyone. I'm John. I'll be your entertainer tonight. And that in 15 minutes, we're going to be introducing the wedding party, and we're going to be bringing them through. We're going to be walking them down. They're going to go to the head table, and just kind of giving people a little bit of an idea of what's coming. And I guess that's probably somewhat close to what you're referring to, but in many cases, I've treated that as almost a throwaway announcement, and maybe that's one of those areas in which I need to be more intentional with. Obviously there's some things that I like to do during that, but maybe even just having a bit more to help to break that ice and to help. I don't know. I'll have to think about that. It's an interesting idea.
Well, I would say if you can find a way to work your personality into those first couple of announcements, then they've warmed up to your personality of when you are now saying something that is legitimately important to them. Not saying the stuff that like you said, it's a throwaway, and I can 100% see why that you would view it as a throwaway, because it very well might be to 90% of the guests that are there. It's something you're saying is something that maybe the venue wants you to say, or something that definitely establishes what might be coming. But if you can find a way to work who you are into that moment, then that connection becomes a little bit stronger for that later moment, for that moment when you actually do want them to kind of interact with you, when you want to have. I like that idea. I'm not sure where I would work it within my stuff and what I would say, but I like that idea.
Mm-hmm. In a movies, they, like you said, the word, Dan, establishing. In a movies, they have an establishing shot before they do a picture of someone. Two people in an office talking. They'll do an outside shot of the office, and that becomes your establishing shot, where you're creating a bridge between you and the crowd. Because all night long, that is mostly your job, is to interact with them and get them to be in the moment with you. So you take each one of those moments. They're not throwaways. You might, if you don't feel the first one hits, would you feel that you could do a second one to between that time? Because that's why I use them. Like I said, to me, it's to connect with that audience that day. If I find one person that I can connect with live, where they're hearing me talk and seeing me talk to a person, that makes me personable. Mm-hmm. And I take that to bridge that point. On stage, it was a lot about just kind of connecting with them. You talk to them. So glad you're here tonight. Who used to call it the cheap pop. Who's here from such and such a city? Mm-hmm. And you're creating that bridge instantly. And they're tools to, I hate to say it, manipulate the crowd.
To work the crowd. Sounds less.
Excuse me. I'm not used to talking this much.
Yeah.
I sit here in the studio by myself.
Dan, another area that you find, you mentioned, of course, the introductions is another area that is kind of a stressful.
is leading into that first dance.
Okay.
You know, leading into, well, actually, you know what? I'm gonna take that back. I'm gonna take that back because while that one's there, that one is kind of a maybe a smoother transition. I would say leading into the parents
Hmm.
because this is a moment where, you know, and I try and get a vibe from the couples as far as the relationships with the parents and everything else, but to just say, here's Janie and her dad. Like, I feel like it's anticlimactic. I feel like there's nothing really that's there. I feel like just doing something to that level does a disservice to the relationships that's there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it's because I have kids, and I think about how I would want my son and the dance with his mother to go,
Sure.
right? And how that might come about later. So I want to be able to give that its due diligence, but I also don't want to potentially step on some toes or to create that weird moment or to go too far, especially when I've got them back to back, right? You
Mm-hmm.
got, if I've got a bride dancing with her dad and then a groom dancing with his mom, like, you don't want to go down the exact same path, but you don't want to give one yay and the other one, right? And so that's some of that stress is finding that relationship and being able to use it in a positive way.
Mm-hmm. And
That's where I
sometimes,
struggle.
and sometimes that can be really, really quite easy because it comes natural with some, and the number of times where it feels like pulling teeth from a chicken, I think is how they say that.
Grew up on a farm and I never heard that one.
Oh, really?
Ours is always, what do you know about milking a duck? You sit on a three-legged stool backwards and pull its left hind leg.
Left hind leg. Yeah.
Three-legged stool backwards, which isn't, you can't do.
You can't do, and then see, either one, and neither of them make sense, and they both convey
My
the
friend Rob
same.
used to say, it's over your head and below your feet.
Yeah, conveying the same
It did
message.
hit me in the chat now. Sorry.
But related to those parent dances, exactly like you said, John. Like some of those I don't even have to think twice about it, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I've been able to witness, I've been able to see, I've been able to absorb those moments, and between what I've asked and what I've been able to see that day of those interactions, 100% makes sense. It's those other moments, it's those other times where it's just I can't get a vibe off of them, and they haven't really given me anything to go off of, and and again, I'm in my own headspace on it, like, and how to go down that route.
I've had situations where I think it's whether it's been the father, daughter, mother, son dance, but those special type of dances where there was an expectation from either the dad or the daughter, one of the parties involved with it, or at times the mother of the bride has an expectation of how beautiful this father-daughter dance is going to be, and she's so excited about it, and then I can feel her excitement for it, and she's sharing with me what she's how this is going to be such a great moment with the two of them, and it's like, oh my gosh, okay, so I want to make sure I do this and do this the best I can. And then as you get there and you're seeing that, wait a second, what mom is, this isn't what mom described to me. These two do not have the relationship that mom was hoping that they would have, I guess, or something. And it's just, and it's like, okay, how can I pull this off and make mom happy and make it so it looks good, so it doesn't look uncomfortable as it's looking right now as we're going through the dinner and the whole evening. And it's like, okay, how does this, where's the win in this moment?
Yep.
Sometimes there's not a win in the moment.
Hmm.
No matter how many tracks you line up on Megaseg, there's not a win in the moment.
Nabbit.
Just tracks lining them up.
MJ, I'm gonna mention one little thing. I don't think that term has been used on this show since the last time you were on this show, so you can't blame me for the fact it keeps coming back.
I'm seeing it. I'm seeing it.
So, family dynamics. Let's kind of bridge to that, and the potential expectations of and how family dynamics can play into those to either exceed or to diminish the potential success due to family dynamics. Is that something that can be handled in advance to head those off, or are we just bound and destined to get to a performance and find out the hard way?
Say that again.
We have family dynamics, and
Yeah, I got
how
that.
we can are there ways to be able to find that out in advance, to that there's going to be some situations, or are we just listening to them at the meeting and finding out that they've got these expectations of this beautiful moment, all these beautiful moments, and then we find out later that they can't happen because of different family dynamics? Can we head some of those issues off, or are the ways to filter those out so we don't basically find ourselves in a spot where we're in a no-win situation?
So there's a couple of questions that I ask of my planner that would lead to the more obvious ones, right? I think you still have some of those where, they have the impression of one thing, or one family member does, like dad thinks this is going to be the greatest thing ever, and the daughter's like, okay, this is going to be awkward. Like you get that, and that's a little harder to gauge. But one of the questions I ask on my planner is, are there any sensitive subjects that I need to be aware of? And I've had some couples who have shared, like, I'm not really close with my parents. We are going to do this event, we are going to do this, moment, but I'm not really close with them. Or, you know, I worry because I'm closer with my stepdad than I am with my own father, but I feel like I need to dance with my real dad, and my stepdad is going to be on the side watching. Like little things like that come out, like they're willing to share with it, because the other thing is, they know it's not like I'm going to get on the mic and I'm going to share that piece, but it's something that they trust me with, because we've talked and we've built, that trust throughout that planning process, that they feel they can share. The other thing is, this comes into, like, when they ask, or when I'm trying to get the parent dances, right? When I'm asking for the parent dances, one of the things I ask also is, paint me a picture about the relationship with your parent. What kind of relationship did you have? You just give me a key memory that you have, right? And if I get to that point in the meeting, they haven't filled it out, and I go, let's talk about this, and they're like, I don't really know. That tells me a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
That tells me a lot right there. However, I will say, like, it has backfired. There's been some that have tried to come up with some cheery moment that I don't wanna say didn't happen, but I don't think meant happen like they thought it did. So it doesn't have the same impact. But those two keys really kind of help catch some of those moments that I think could have been awkward had I not known about it ahead of time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, catching those potential is huge. And as you were talking about, you have that questionnaire. I wonder if that to fit in. I don't have that question type of a situation, which obviously that's going to change. I've just say as an example, there's the songs not to play, and when we're going through and it's like, hey, I noticed you didn't put any songs not to play in there. When I have that, I'm kind of looking for songs like, if there's a song that maybe you and an ex, it was your song, and you giving some examples. And when I do this verbally, it seems that I usually catch a couple, because I'm kind of now helping explain it. I wonder if you see the same situation, is that you've got it kind of on, trying to explain that on paper, in essence, or in, that they can type the answer, what have you. But then when you would ask the question and elaborate maybe just a hair bit more type of a situation, or define it better, if they would give you a different or a stronger answer.
I go back to the question. I want to say Randy Bartlett, was one of those that really gets credit for this, and I'm sure he's not the first, but we always hear that, always asking why,
Mm-hmm.
right? Don't be afraid to ask why. And obviously, depending upon what was shared with you, right? You don't have to get into the why if it's kind of like an ugly situation. You don't want to pull that out. But if it's something that's not really there, I don't think there's anything wrong with asking the why. You don't have any do not plays. Is there any bad memories, any sticky situations? And I've had, exactly like you said, like when I mentioned that way, oh, yeah, I probably shouldn't have played mom and dad's wedding song since they're not together anymore. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like, probably wouldn't have played it anyway because I'm not going to play the 1970s ballad that they danced to. But knowing that is a good thing to pull out, and that also kind of helps share that. So yeah, don't be afraid to ask why, um, in most circumstances.
The why. It's always a good one. We got about 15 minutes, 10, 15 minutes left. Let's talk a little bit about, and this actually, MJ kind of brought this up earlier, and as I've been thinking about it, I think this is a very stressful area, because we could go through more instances in performance, but we're running businesses, and our businesses have to generate money. And MJ was talking about the roller coaster. Some months that there's more, that there's you have shows booked, and some months there aren't. The finances can be very stressful, and how have you handled the stress of dealing with it when it comes to finances and such? And I think we're going to have 3 completely different answers with this one. So I'll go first. A big part of the stress for myself, for a lot of you, that I have taken a part-time job at the post office in my area here. And that means that I have a consistent paycheck, not a very big one, but it's a consistent paycheck, which in Minnesota, because our wedding season is only a few months long, it's like 36 hours, and then it's snow season. Well, 34 hours, 2 hours are mosquito season, and then it's snow season. That it's amazing how just that little bit of extra income and such has been such a stress reliever when it comes to booking shows. It's one of those things that it's like, I could take it or leave it. If somebody calls and they're like, yeah, we're interested in great, here's what I do, and here's what I charge or whatever. And if they book, yay. If they don't, or if they want to negotiate, I can be confidently say it's like, this is what it takes for me to come out and dedicate my Saturday to perform for you, type of a thing. And if it doesn't work, I understand. Thank you for calling. And move on. But that has been a huge stress reliever. And it's not like I'm making $1 million at the post office. It's I could book 10 weddings. Seriously, I could book 10 weddings, and it would cover my year's income from the post office, because I'm part-time. But that little bit makes it so this winter's been a much more, with a lot less stress, because if I don't DJ in January, well, I still have some money coming in, so that's a good thing. So that's how I've been able to handle that side of it. When I was DJing full time, that meant in the wintertime, I'm trying to hustle and get into a couple of schools. I'm trying to, find a bar here or there just to, pick up a couple of shows, or doing bridal shows and trying to, get a few extra bookings in January, whatever it was. Trying to do Facebook ads, and with some success some years, and some years it was just complete crap, but some years it was really good. Don't have to sit there and pull my hair out and try to figure out what's going to be the ticket to move forward, and it's helped tremendously when it comes to the stress side of it. So that's my side. Who's next, guys?
You, MJ.
Oh, I didn't hear you.
I said MJ, go for it.
Oh, okay. Gosh, what part of my life do you want me to say how I handled it? Because there've been some bad times. I mentioned in the previous one that there was a time in my life I just wanted to chase the dream, that I literally rented a room off a friend of mine's mom to keep going, what's a 30-some, gosh, I was in my late 30s then, renting a room to chase a dream when everybody else has, got their families and their houses and all these things. But there's been times where it's been a part-time job. One of the things that I found that works for me is that in Venmo and PayPal, anytime I get anything in there, I leave it in there, so that when there are tough months or an emergency comes up, that's what there's for. It's money that's hard to touch. So having a backup that's not part of your norm for that purpose helps. Because you're like, okay, this month, I know next month I'm booked to this. I just got to get through this month. What do I do this month? Or if I realize I have a slow month coming up, what can I do this month extra? Take something extra that I can't. So there's a lot of moving stuff around.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I told John, I said, I'm trying to really push this year in 2025 to build my print on demand and stuff to where that can be a partial income that doesn't make me take gigs that I don't want to take. And that's we talk about the stress of it. How many times have we taken gigs for no other reason than the paycheck? We know we're not going to enjoy it. It's probably a long drive. It's probably for people we don't want to work for or at a place we don't want to be. We maybe don't even feel safe there. Maybe it's a bad part of town. Who knows? But having backup like that is a big thing. You also, I mentioned also in the last hour that remember that 93% of all DJs do it part time. So I'm one of the 7% that if I fail in my DJ world, I fail everywhere. You know, I don't have the backup. And John, you had that for the longest time, and now you said you have that little bit of day job,
Mm-hmm.
and to have the DJ life as your secondary helps in a way. You know, but you know, like I said, if DJ fails, there's something else. But for me, it's never been that way. It's been sink or sail. So there are months where it's like, okay, this month I don't eat out, I don't purchase anything, I don't go anywhere, I don't do anything. This month is as we used to say, a no buy November. So this is
Mm-hmm.
it could be a no buy January. And no buy January means that you don't stop and get a Pepsi at some place. If you don't buy it at the store, non-brand, you know, it's a
Yeah.
good month. I got a brand name. It's a good month.
Woohoo!
I always make the joke. I said, if I hit the lottery, you'll know because there'll be brand name peanut butter in my house. So it's a lot of things like that to where you have to prepare. And again, back to what I said earlier, you can't beat yourself up if you don't have a successful month. I don't have the people relying on me that like you guys do, wife and kids and different things like that. Those people need you. I fail, it's me. I don't even have a dog that's I don't even have a house plant. So if I fail, there isn't even a house plant that's going to suffer. It's only me. And again, you've got to not beat yourself up. Have some extra setting here or there. Learn that again, depending on what part of my life you're at, you learn this month, electric bill is going to be paid next month. I know I have the things you just. It's a terrible way to live, but I know that working a day job where I had that made me so miserable mentally. It made me physically sick. That these are the prices that I told you before. You have to. What are you willing to pay?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of little things like that in the ups and downs, but just don't beat yourself up and over not having the perfect life. You just can't.
Mm-hmm.
Does that answer it? I don't even know
No,
what I'm
no,
talking
that's good.
about.
Yeah, I mean, basically, you just described having having an emergency fund.
That's a big thing.
Yeah,
I think that's what when
that's real.
COVID was going on, you weren't going out as much. So I saved.
Mm-hmm.
It was amazing how having that little bit there going, okay, I'm not going out to eat with anybody. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going to, do this. And I'm okay.
Yeah,
So I'm not celebrating, but I'm okay.
yeah, and that works.
That's a form of wealth in itself. Just being able to, like I said, you redefine your success, and that for me was a big thing. So tough times.
Dan, wrap us up. How does Dan handle the stress of business and
Well,
finances?
I mean, I'm very blessed, right? Like I do have that situation where I have a full-time job besides DJing, which is another full-time job. It is the way I treat it. That's the way I go about it, and I'm very blessed in that I have the backing and the following within my local community to help support that. If I were to um, if something were to happen and my full-time job would suddenly go away, I would have some of the stressors of kind of freaking out because I've kind of gotten used to the double income, but could make it a go. But so I don't stress about the financial piece of the business. Kind of like what you were saying, John. Like if it's an event that's coming in and I'm not really feeling it, there's a couple of venues now that for lack of better terms, I've blacklisted because they're just miserable to be at.
Sure.
I'll go, but there's major concessions that people have to make. And I can do that. I don't have to worry about, oh, I did that. That means now this Saturday I don't work, and so I don't eat. Like I'm blessed in that aspect. But what that does comes at a different trade-off. So while I don't worry about the stressors of financial reasons, I now have the stressors of time restrictions.
Mm.
I'm running my business. I'm trying to do social media. I'm trying to make sure contracts go out. I'm trying to, correspond with couples who may want to hire me. I'm, corresponding with the couples who have hired me. Like, I'm trying to do all those things in a day that is now severely condensed. And then you add in family responsibilities. And one of the things that, I've picked up as a stress reliever of sorts, um, you know, John, we didn't talk about this, but like those outside activities that we have, like with the running and that
Mm-hmm.
help give us an outlet. So now I'm putting all those pieces in, and I only have so much time for everything. So while mine might not be from the business financial side, it is from the business time commitment side
Mm-hmm.
that really creates that, um, man, I got to be efficient with my time. I really have to make sure that I'm efficient, and I'm working, try and find ways to work that, um, to where I'm not killing a lot of that time because of, just going in circles or reinventing the wheel. I need to look for ways that I can take and reutilize ideas to the best of my ability.
Yeah, yeah, that becomes and we hit onto that one in the last show. They're talking about that making the decisions to go left or to go right, and in essence, we're going to neglect some things, and some things have to go away, and some things have to take a higher focus. Yeah, and that can be difficult. Definitely difficult.
It's a cost to everything.
Mm-hmm.
You just had to figure out what price do you want to pay. And like I said, when I talked before in the other one about relationships, I know that my life has suffered that way because I've said relationships aren't important, and where somebody else, it's like, no, this is important. This is, so you have to figure out for yourself where part of the business can you make it all work? Because you can't do it all.
Yeah.
Cannot do it all. So that's my encouragement. Find that.
Excellent. Good stuff, guys. Good
Nerd.
stuff. Let's see, DJNTV.com/chill. The chill room is up, and the crew will be in there in just a little bit and doing their Monday night live chat. You can bounce out there and hang out and chat and do their things as they record a show tonight. Tomorrow night will be, let's see, I've got Eric Rhodes on tomorrow night at 8 o'clock Eastern, and we got during the Tuesday night with Ben Stowe show. It's actually going to be the Tuesday night NAM preview show tomorrow night. I've got Kyle from NLFX Pro. He's going to be coming in. We're going to be talking about any kind of information he's gotten so far and some of the information I've gotten so far. Some of the information we can't talk about. Like I've done 2-3 videos so far of new gear that's going to be released on Thursday, which our videos will be hitting Thursday. So you guys will be able to see those then, but we can't talk about them, but we're going to allude to them a lot tomorrow night, just because. I'm going to bring out my crayons, and I'm going to draw pictures, and it'll be great. It's sock puppets.
Just be careful that speaker doesn't look like something it shouldn't look like.
Oh yeah, everything looks like that, unfortunately.
Make it censored.
Yeah, my artwork is not very
bad.
good. Not very good at all. It'll be like that episode of what was it? One of those shows where
Every
Naked
cartoon
Guns, show. Yeah, Naked Gun show where they were talking about, look at that big rocket. It looks like a big Johnson, Steve.
Oh.
Yeah.
So you need to go the opposite way, like the one person did when they were saying, "See this here? It's not going to look anything like that." So picture the speaker. What's coming out Thursday? It's not going to look anything like
this. Yeah, that I could work. That I could work. Yeah, we'll make that work. So yeah, we'll have that, and then Wednesday night we will be coming back with a Monday night show and a Tuesday night music show discussion for you guys to catch up if you haven't been following along with those. So again, DJNTV.com/chill for tonight, and we will catch you guys next time with those. All right, Dan, take us home.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for joining us. I saw some names in the chat, some people that haven't necessarily checked in lately. So thank you very much. And those of you that are watching this on replay, we appreciate you as well. MJ, thank you for sticking around, even though we just kidnapped you for the extra hour. Everybody, have yourself a great one, and we'll see y'all next week. Bye.